So were the critics right about the Super Mario Bros. Movie? In this video, I thought it would be fun to read off some of these critic reviews that are rotten on Rotten Tomatoes and give my thoughts on their short reviews. And if you guys enjoyed this video, I'll do a part 2 on the positive reviews and maybe even some more of the negative reviews as well. So the Mario movie is doing numbers at the box office. It beat out Disney's Frozen 2 for best opening weekend. It could be joining Disney's Frozen 2 in the $1 billion box office club, which is a cool fact. And another cool fact, the last animated film to hit $1 billion was Frozen 2. And that was 4 years ago in 2019. But I think one thing that caught the attention of viewers before they even got to see the movie and even after they saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie was the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. The first score was 46 and then later jumped up to 56 and now it's standing at a 59, making the average score for the Super Mario Bros. Movie from critics a 5.5 rating that I don't really agree with personally, and I'd be curious if you guys agree with it in the comment section below. Because I know in the past a lot of you guys definitely told me a lot about your thoughts on what you thought about the critics, and personally I think they're completely wrong. On face value, we'll see going forward. And instead of putting out a blanket statement and saying all critics are wrong, because some of them are positive too, they're not all negative. Keep that in mind. I know the whole thing going around is all critics are wrong, but some of them are positive too, they're not all negative. I thought it would be fun to tackle some of these criticisms on the more negative reviews and give my thoughts on what I think on what they're saying. With the first one being from Eric Estranda, I probably butchered that name, I'm horrible at names, but he says this: the quality of the offering is questionable from multiple angles. Now that's not really much to go off of, and when you click on the full review to even dig deeper into it, you have to pay $1 on his Patreon, which I'm not doing. With $1 I can buy a cheeseburger, I ain't paying for his review, so let's move on to the next one. Memo to director Aaron Harvoth and Michael Jelenic. Seeing corporate symbols go through the motions of half-baked story isn't much fun. So I think this is one of the criticisms that we can pretty much all agree on, is that the story wasn't the most amazing thing. It wasn't too deep, it wasn't too amazing, it wasn't the best animated story of all time. If you're going into the Super Mario Bros. Movie expecting an amazing story, you're going to be highly disappointed. Even in the games, the story really isn't the biggest thing around. It's not the focus of the game. So I think personally when I went into the Super Mario Bros. Movie, I wasn't expecting the best story around because the games didn't have the best story around. But with what little they had to work with, because the Super Mario Bros. Movie didn't really flesh out the characters or even the story surrounding it too much in the games, I think they did a good job. Is it the best story around, especially when it comes to pacing? No, it's not, but it's enjoyable for what it is. And in my opinion, yes, that is a negative. The story having problems is definitely a negative towards the movie if you were looking at a movie in a more critical way, which we are in this video. So while I do agree that the story was half-baked, I think it was still fun. There was still fun with the story. And that in part is because it's set in the Super Mario Bros. Movie with all the Easter eggs and just the characters that surround it and the voice actors too. What lacks in story is made up with the fun of the movie. Now the next one is from Victor Lopez G, and he says this: a sort of dream come true for fans of the mustached plumber, full of Easter eggs, details, and devotions, but weighed down by narrative foundation that is fragile enough to bury its minimal efforts to entertain. Now, this is another one that says the narrative just isn't there, and he's going so far to say that it wasn't entertaining at all. And I think this really comes down to how you're reviewing this movie. If you're reviewing this as a Mario fan, you're gonna have a higher score. And I think because of this, I think it would be interesting to just do a fan review and then do a critical look review. Two different reviews for two different purposes. If you're looking to say definitively how good it is, because movies, and we have all agreed on this throughout multiple movies throughout the years, that certain things make movies good. Story, pacing, characters, the fun of the movie, or, you know, if it's trying to do something else, like, say, it's a horror movie. I mean, you could even have fun with horror movies, though, too. But at the end of the day, we pretty much agree that there are certain things that make movies fun and make movies good, and things that make movies bad. And this is why I don't agree that films are subjective. There's good films, and there are bad films. Like, I like the 1993 Mario movie, but let's be honest, that movie ain't good. It's not a good movie, and it's not a good Mario movie either, but it gets to the point where it's so bad that it's good, you know what I mean? And I fully know that it's not a good movie, but I still enjoy it. Now, does that make it a good movie? No, it doesn't, but it's still enjoyable to watch, you know? And I think the Super Mario Bros. Movie kind of falls into that situation, but the difference between the 1993 Mario movie and this Mario movie is that it actually respects the source material and it's recognizable from the games to the on-screen adaptation. So because it does that thing that is just so important to a video game movie, it actually ended up being a great success, and I think that's why it's doing so well. And I think it's an interesting thing to where video games and comic book adaptations and all these other things kind of have a little bit more leeway than just original movies. As long as they respect the source material, I think they can get away with some of the other misgivings, which, let's be honest, a lot of movies that are considered really great do have misgivings as well. And I think what it comes down to when it comes to the negatives of this movie is that a lot of critics are making the negatives of the movie affecting the score more than they should, if you know what I mean. So I think the story and narrative, while it isn't the most amazing thing, I don't think it's necessarily as bad as some of these critics are saying. So I would probably only knock off about a 0.5 from it, which when you look at this critic, his score was originally 5 out of 10. And personally, I think the negatives of this movie are affecting that score a little bit more than it should. So this next one from John Wilms, he says, among the many errors of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, screenwriter Matthew Fogel plops him and his brother Luigi into a milquetoast Brooklyn family that doubts them and disrespects their small business dreams. So this is one of the things that makes part of the story even better and the ending better too. This isn't a negative, this is actually a positive. It's giving them a reason to start a business, it's giving them a reason to be plumbers, it's building out the world and building out their character as well. It's building out the relationship as well between Mario and Luigi. I don't even consider this a criticism at this point. This was a positive in the movie. The family aspect of this was interesting to me. When I first saw that, I was like, that's actually pretty cool. And the funny thing about this is, look at this headline. The Super Mario Bros. Movie drew on the unused Nintendo designs to build out Mario's family. So he didn't just plop him into there. This was actually from unused designs from the games. And funny enough, the intention of this was to ground the characters according to the director. They wanted them to have a lively family dinner scene. So on one side, you're saying, the story isn't great, there really isn't much to it. And on the other hand, you have critics saying, this part of the story I just don't like. So it's like the Mario movie can't win either way. And having a disapproving parent or family that doesn't approve of what you're doing or your business or whatever or what have you is something that a lot of us can relate to. It's bringing that relatable aspect to the Super Mario Bros. Movie that wasn't really in the games too much. And this was also paid off later at the end of the movie as well. And again, I do have to say, even the payoff, it was really quick. It was like an instant change. I would like to see that change throughout the movie instead, but it's what we got. And that still is considered a negative in my book, but it wasn't so much of a negative that it would ruin the movie, and that's what a lot of these critics are acting like it is. And next up, we have Dylan Roth from The Observer. It says, it is the laziest possible version of a Mario movie, and for most viewers, young and old, that'll be totally acceptable. So calling this movie lazy, I wouldn't agree with that at all. They actually incorporated a lot of the Mario elements into this world and built a world around it. So to call this lazy, I would completely disagree with that. And the line of, for most viewers, young and old, that'll be totally acceptable, kinda sounds like he's a little angry that this movie is doing pretty good. And next up, we have Wendy Ide from The Observer in the UK, and it says, a frantic Easter egg hunt of a film that does the bare minimum to please its loyal existing fan base. And this person gave it a 1 out of 5. A 1 out of 5. This movie is not a 1 out of 5. Even if you were doing a critical review of this movie, a 1 out of 5 is definitely not the score. Not even close. And this is the thing that I was talking about how some of these negatives are affecting the score more than they should. And the next one is from Odie Harrison, and he says, this isn't a movie, it's a checklist of expectations. And that's exactly why the movie is doing really well, because fans are expecting a Mario movie, and that's exactly what they got. And this is one of those things where a lot of these critics are pointing out that, the story's not good, there's just a lot of Easter eggs, it's an Easter egg. That's what we love about the movie! That's all it needed to be. I mean, you think the first Avengers movie was perfect? No, it wasn't perfect. That movie also was basically what the Mario movie did. It wasn't the deepest story. It really wasn't the best superhero movie around. Well, at the time it was, but now when you compare it to other movies, it isn't. But it was just good old-fashioned superhero fun, and that's all it needed to be. And I'm guessing the people who would review that nowadays probably wouldn't give it that kind of score, now would they? They probably wouldn't. Now that's the last one I'm gonna read off, and overall, from what I gather just from these couple negative reviews, what I gather is they didn't like the Easter eggs, they didn't like that the story wasn't really there, or wasn't as grand as they expected, at least. and they didn't like the pacing. Now, one thing that I can say is that I think these negatives are impacting the score way more than other movies for some weird reason. I don't know why, I don't know how, but that's what it looks like. I mean, a 1.5 for O.D. Harrison, this is not a 1.5, well, that is out of 4, so I guess that would be more or less a 5.5 if it was a 10 out of 10. But again, it's still affecting the score a little bit more than I think it should. And at the end of the day, I don't think the Super Mario Bros. Movie needed to be this grand animation that had a very in-depth story, and to be honest, I think it works for the movie. I think focusing more on the world building and the fun of the movie is what made it fun. And I think a lot of different movies tend to forget to do that. They tend to forget to entertain their audience when it comes to animated movies. But overall, I think it was really interesting to look at some of these because I do agree with some of these, but not as much as other parts of the other critics that were negative. So it's a really interesting situation to where sometimes you can agree with them and sometimes you can't, and sometimes you're kind of meeting them halfway. But tell me what you guys think about this in the comment section below, and if you guys want me to do another video like this looking at the positive ones and even more of the negative ones, I will do it. Just tell me in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Oh, and subscribe. Subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you guys later.